Good evening and welcome to The Daily Show. Tonight we're taking a look at a leader who's making waves, shaking things up and, well, trying to keep his head above water all at the same time. I'm talking about Burkina Faso's president, Ibrahim Traoré. Now, Captain Traoré, as he's still often called, isn't your typical head of state. He's a military man, a career soldier who rose through the ranks. He was there in the trenches, literally, serving as a peacekeeper in Mali, before things got really interesting back home. You see, Burkina Faso had been through a bit of a political roller coaster. In 2022, they'd already had one coup, led by a guy named Paul-Henri Damiba. Traoré, at the time, was actually on board with that whole thing, but then, just a few months later, Traoré decided, you know what, I can do this whole leading a coup thing better, and bam, just like that, he became the youngest president in the world. So, there you have it, a young, ambitious captain takes the helm of a nation grappling with poverty, instability, and more armed groups than you can shake a stick at. It's a story that's as fascinating as it is, well, a little bit terrifying. But hey, that's Burkina Faso for you, never a dull moment. Stick around because we're just getting started. We'll be right back after the break. Welcome back to The Daily Show. Now, before the break we were talking about Captain Traoré, Burkina Faso's coup-leading, presidenting, all-around busy guy. And one of the things that's been keeping him particularly busy is this whole alliance of Sahel states thing. Imagine a group project, but instead of stressed-out college kids, it's 3 countries in the Sahel region of Africa: Burkina Faso, Mali, and Niger. They're all dealing with similar issues: poverty, terrorism, you name it. So they figured, hey, why not team up? And that's how the Alliance of Sahel States, or AES, was born. Now on paper, this thing sounds like a great idea. They want to boost their economies, improve security, and basically make the Sahel a much better place to live. Traoré, being the charismatic leader that he is, has been a driving force behind the AES. He even gave this big, inspiring speech at their first summit, talking about unity and cooperation. It was like watching a Sahel version of the Avengers assemble, but with fewer explosions and more talk about infrastructure projects. But the big question is, can this alliance actually work? Can these 3 countries, each facing their own internal struggles, really come together and achieve something meaningful? It's a gamble, that's for sure. But hey, as they say, the best way to predict the future is to create it, right? We'll be keeping a close eye on this Sahel squad. Coming up next, we'll dive into Traoré's approach to security. And let me tell you, it's not for the faint of heart. Don't go anywhere. Welcome back to The Daily Show, where we're talking all things Burkina Faso. Now, as we've established, President Traoré isn't afraid of a challenge. In fact, he seems to embrace it. And when it comes to security, well, let's just say he's not messing around. Traoré's security doctrine can be summed up in 2 words: more guns. Okay, maybe that's an oversimplification, but not by much. He's poured a ton of resources into the military, basically saying, look, we're surrounded by armed groups, we need to be able to fight back. And to beef up those fighting forces, he's created this thing called the Volunteers for the Defense of the Homeland, or VDH. Now, the VDH is basically a volunteer militia, made up of ordinary citizens who are willing to take up arms and defend their country. Think of it like a neighborhood watch program, but instead of flashlights and walkie-talkies, they've got AK-47s and a whole lot of patriotic zeal. Now, some people might say, wait a minute, arming civilians, isn't that a recipe for disaster? And to be fair, there have been reports of forced recruitment and some, shall we say, overzealous behavior from the VDH. But Traoré argues that desperate times call for desperate measures. He's basically saying, look, we're in a fight for our survival here, and we need all hands on deck. Whether this strategy of militarization and civilian mobilization will pay off remains to be seen. But one thing's for sure, Burkina Faso is about to get a whole lot more intense. Stay tuned as we explore the human cost of this conflict and the growing humanitarian crisis in Burkina Faso. You won't want to miss it. And we're back with The Daily Show. Now, we've been talking about Burkina Faso's security situation, and let's just say it's not exactly sunshine and roses over there. In fact, it's more like a raging dumpster fire fueled by armed groups, poverty, and a whole lot of despair. Since Traoré took over, the violence has actually gotten worse. It's like those armed groups saw a big neon sign flashing new sheriff in town and decided to throw a welcome party. And by welcome party, I mean a terrifying wave of attacks, kidnappings, and general mayhem. People are being killed, villages are being burned, and millions have been forced to flee their homes. It's a full-blown humanitarian crisis, and it's only getting worse. Imagine living in a place where you're constantly afraid, where you don't know if you'll make it home alive at the end of the day. That's the reality for millions in Burkina Faso right now. And the saddest part is, a lot of these armed groups, they're not fighting for some grand ideology or some noble cause. They're fighting for power, for resources, for the right to terrorize and exploit. It's a vicious cycle of violence and poverty, and it's tearing the country apart. Now, Traoré, to his credit, he's trying to do something about it, but it's like trying to put out a wildfire with a garden hose. The situation is complex, it's messy, and it's heartbreaking. And it's a stark reminder of the human cost of conflict, of the real lives that are being shattered by this violence. Up next, we'll explore Traoré's foreign policy and his, shall we say, complicated relationship with France. Oh boy, this is going to be good. Don't touch that dial. Section 5. Distant Allies, Familiar Faces, Burkina Faso's Foreign Policy. Welcome back to The Daily Show, where we're dissecting the wild world of Burkinabe politics. Now, we've talked about Traoré's domestic policies, but what about his foreign policy? How's he navigating the treacherous waters of international relations? Well, let's just say he's not afraid to make a splash. One of Traoré's boldest moves has been to distance Burkina Faso from France. Now, France and Burkina Faso, they have a long and complicated history, to put it mildly. It's one of those former colony, former colonizer relationships fraught with baggage and resentment. And Traoré has tapped into that anti-French sentiment, basically saying, look, France has been meddling in our affairs for too long. It's time for us to chart our own course. He's kicked out French troops, ditched French as the official language, well, sort of, and generally given France the cold shoulder. But here's the thing. While Traoré's been busy giving France the boot, he's been cozying up to another global power, Russia. Yep, you heard that right. Russian flags are popping up all over Burkina Faso, and there are even rumors of those shadowy Wagner Group mercenaries lending a helping hand, or should I say a helping Kalashnikov. Now, whether this pivot towards Russia will be good for Burkina Faso in the long run is anyone's guess, but one thing's for sure, Traoré is playing a high-stakes game of geopolitical chess, and he's not afraid to shake things up. It's a bold strategy, Cotton. Let's see if it pays off for him. Stay tuned, because up next we'll delve into the economic challenges facing Burkina Faso and Traoré's attempts to keep the country afloat. You won't want to miss this. Section 6. Navigating the Economic Storm, Traoré's Balancing Act. Welcome back to The Daily Show, where we're talking economics. Don't worry, I promise to keep it as exciting as possible. Now, as you can imagine, Burkina Faso isn't exactly known for its booming economy. In fact, it's one of the poorest countries in the world. And to make matters worse, all this instability and violence we've been talking about, it's not exactly great for business. Investors are spooked, tourists are staying far, far away, and the economy is basically stuck in quicksand. So what's a cash-strapped, coup-leading president to do? Well, if you're Ibrahim Traoré, you do what any sensible leader would do, you ask for help. Now, Traoré initially talked a big game about rejecting international loans, saying Burkina Faso needed to stand on its own 2 feet, but then reality set in. And by reality, I mean the IMF and the World Bank came knocking with bags of money. And let's be honest, when the IMF offers you a loan, you don't exactly say no. So, Traoré swallowed his pride, took the money, and promised to implement some economic reforms. Now, whether these reforms will actually work is a whole other story, but hey, at least he's trying, right? Traoré's in a tough spot, trying to balance his anti-imperialist rhetoric with the very real need for financial assistance. It's a delicate dance, and only time will tell if he can pull it off. Coming up next, we'll shine a light on the often overlooked humanitarian crisis unfolding in Burkina Faso. Stay with us. Section 7. A Cry for Help. The Humanitarian Crisis. And we're back with The Daily Show, where things are about to get real. We've been talking a lot about politics and economics, but we can't forget about the human cost of this crisis, because behind all the headlines and the political maneuvering, there are millions of real people whose lives have been turned upside down. Imagine being forced to flee your home, leaving everything behind because it's too dangerous to stay. Imagine not knowing where your next meal is coming from, or if your children will be safe. That's the reality for millions in Burkina Faso right now. The humanitarian crisis there is staggering. Millions have been displaced, families are torn apart, and basic necessities like food, water, and shelter are in short supply. And if that wasn't bad enough, the ongoing violence is making it incredibly difficult for aid organizations to reach those in need. It's a perfect storm of horror, and the international community needs to step up and do more to help. These people need our support, they need our compassion. and they need it now. We can't let them down. Stay tuned as we wrap things up with a look at Traoré's legacy and the uncertain future of Burkina Faso. You won't want to miss it. Section 8, A Legacy in the Balance, Traoré's Report Card. Welcome back, folks, to The Daily Show. As we reach the end of our deep dive into Burkina Faso, it's time to grade Captain Traoré's performance so far. It's been a wild ride, hasn't it? Coups, alliances, Russian flags. It's enough to make your head spin. So, how's Traoré doing? Well, it's complicated. On one hand, he's shown a willingness to challenge the status quo, to stand up to former colonial powers, and to forge his own path. He's charismatic, he's ambitious, and he clearly wants what's best for his country. But on the other hand, his tenure has been marked by escalating violence, a worsening humanitarian crisis, and a lot of questions about his government's commitment to human rights and democracy. The jury's still out on whether his gamble on Russia will pay off, and the economic situation remains precarious. It's too early to say what Traoré's legacy will be. Will he be remembered as the leader who saved Burkina Faso from the brink, or the one who pushed it further into chaos? Only time will tell. What's clear is that he's facing an uphill battle, one that will require all his cunning, all his determination, and a little bit of luck. But hey, that's leadership for you, it's not for the faint of heart. Section 9, Looking Ahead, the uncertain future of Burkina Faso. And that brings us to the end of our show. Before we go, I want to leave you with this. Burkina Faso's future hangs in the balance. The challenges are immense, the stakes are high, and the path forward is anything but clear. But amidst all the uncertainty, there's a glimmer of hope. The Burkinabe people are resilient, they've been through a lot, and they're determined to build a better future for themselves and their children. And who knows, maybe, just maybe, Captain Traoré will be the one to lead them there. Or maybe it will be someone else entirely. But one thing's for sure, the world will be watching. That's our show for tonight. Join us next time for more news, more laughs, and more attempts to make sense of this crazy world we live in. Good night.